Everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today we got Loki episode 5, the penultimate episode of Loki. We have one more after this. One more episode of this crazy show that seems to be altering the MCU timeline and the way we think about the reality of the MCU and how this all actually fits together. Wow, we're here, we're like this close to the end, and I really hope that they stick the landing. It feels like they're going to. I know that for both WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, a lot of people, for different reasons, had issues with the ways that those shows ended. I think I was okay with both. I don't think they were like necessarily the strongest way they could have ended, but this one feels like it has more promise to it. It feels like everything has been going to plan. Everything's been going exactly the way they want it to go. So anyways, full spoilers here, obviously, and go watch the show first and all that. Okay, so let's just go ahead and dive into it. So, at the end of last episode, both Mobius and Loki had been pruned, and for the longest time, we just kind of assumed that meant disintegrated, destroyed forever, they're gone, right? Because obviously that's what it looks like. It looks like they disintegrate, right? So we didn't really question it that much at the beginning. But of course, Loki wakes up and he sees all these other Lokis, so it's clear that, at least for the moment, they're not destroyed permanently. And then, of course, Sylvie is there trying to demand answers from Renslayer. See, I'm actually remembering the names of these other characters now. It's only taken me the entire season of the show. Anyways. So, first off, in the TVA, I think we'll just cover this whole TVA part because we actually have... There's only a little bit of scenes here, so... basically, it starts off with Renslayer saying, like, yeah, I want to help you find whoever's behind this, because that, you know, the fact that the Timekeepers were a lie was a complete surprise to me. I had no idea that that was the case, and she seems to be genuine here. The only thing is that, like, it was a pretty quick turn. She seemed to, like, immediately be on Sylvie's side, immediately being willing to help her and figure this all out. Sylvie does not entirely trust her, and neither did I in that moment, because I was like, there's no way that she went from being this person willing to kill her own friend, you know, because she thought that Owen Wilson was being killed, right? She wouldn't turn from someone who's willing to kill her own friend like that to immediately being like, what, the Timekeepers aren't real? Well, I guess I'll help you. I'll help you, Loki variant that I've been hunting the whole time. It just didn't seem real. That didn't match her personality. And of course, it turns out to not be real, because she ends up just stalling for time, saying like, oh yeah, I'm looking for this vehicle that can survive the void of time or whatever. Which of course, she's stalling for time. A bunch of TVA agents come in. And she seems to still be operating as usual. She seems to still, like, not care that the Timekeepers are fake and all this, at least at the moment. So Sylvie ends up pruning herself. She turns on the thing and she zaps herself. But of course, she has one of those little devices, I forget what they're called, the ones that let you open up doors to other timelines. So she's fine. She's gonna be fine. And then later on, we see Renslayer talking to the Hunter. I think it's B-15 maybe, the one that figured out that she was a variant and helped them fight the Timekeepers in the last episode. And basically she's just trying to get information about what Sylvie might be up to, and Renslayer basically just learns that, like, okay, so Sylvie just wants to find out who is responsible for all this, like who actually created the TVA and the Timekeepers and everything. And the Hunter basically looks at Renslayer saying, like, you're not doing this to, like, you know, for stability of the TVA and trying to keep things as the status quo. You're doing this because you want to know the truth. You want to figure out what's behind this. And Renslayer doesn't answer her. So I don't, and that's my thing, is that, like, at the moment it appears that Renslayer does not actually know any more than anyone else. That maybe she was also still fooled by the Timekeepers, and she thought that all of that was for real. It at least appears that way. Now, next episode might be a big reveal that, like, no, she totally knew the whole time what was going on and who the ultimate bad guy is and everything. But for right now, it does not appear to be the case, because she asks Miss Minute, like, hey, I need all the information for the beginning of time, for the beginning of the TVA and everything, because whoever's behind this is going to be in danger from Sylvie, who's probably just going to try and kill that person or whatever. So that's where we leave Renslayer, and again, maybe in the next episode it turns out that no, she really did know a lot more than she let on, because as we know from the comics, her and King the Conqueror are supposed to kind of be a thing for a minute, so it's possible that she's actually in cahoots with Kang, who may or may not be the person at the end of all of this. You know, it does feel like the show's setting up for one more really giant reveal of like, who is this mystery person, you know, and that might be like literally a last minute thing that they reveal, and then the show ends, and then you know, because we know that King the Conqueror is in the next Ant-Man, so we know he's coming, and this show makes more sense than any other time for his like big introduction. So I don't know, I'd say there's a pretty good percentage chance that Kang makes a cameo at least at the very end. But I guess we'll find out. Anyways, so we cut back to our actual Loki, and I'll just cover this whole spot here. So basically the way that they describe this is that he woke up in a place called the Void at the end of time. So essentially, if you were to take one of those, you know, one of those little portal things, it would not let you go to the end of time. You couldn't like physically teleport there, because according to whatever technology they're using, there's not like a time to mark onto, you know, there's not like a year, I guess. It's just like this vague end point that is in between creation and destruction or something. But basically anything that's ever been pruned and zapped in every timeline that's ever been destroyed, so the whole time that the TVA has been a thing, it's all been sent here at the end of time in this like destructive void where there's this big cloud creature called Alioth, I think, Alioth, I think that's how they said it. But anyways, so basically the idea is that this creature finally disintegrates anything that just gets sent here. So Loki gets zapped here, but he's not dead yet. He still has to then get devoured by this cloud creature thing, and there's been a group of Lokis that have essentially been on the run this whole time. He goes back to their headquarters, and we see a little bit more about Alligator Loki, and they make a couple jokes about, is Alligator Loki really a Loki, and this and that. You learn a little bit more about some of these other Lokis. Like, you remember, we see that Kid Loki has killed his Thor. We see that old classic Loki, he basically pretended to die from Thanos, and then he went off to just kind of float in space in solitude and just like hid out for the rest of his life until he became old. I don't know if did we get the backstory for Boastful Loki? I might have to go back and rewatch it, because they very quickly went over like what their situation was. But the guy who had like a fake looking Mjolnir, I don't know. I'll have to go see what his story was again. But anyways, they very quickly get surrounded by other Lokis, and some, I don't think they were all Lokis. I think some of them were just like henchmen and marauders, they call them. But basically, Boastful Loki had betrayed their group of Lokis to this other Loki, and then very quickly that Loki gets betrayed by his entire group of marauders or possible other Lokis, I guess. But basically the kind of joke is that like, oh, all the Lokis of course would just be like this cascading of betrayals. One betrays another, betrays another, betrays another. Alligator Loki bit off that President Loki's hand, and it was just a big comedic scene. It didn't last that long, and honestly it felt like something that kind of could have been cut out, because they immediately leave that situation and it didn't really affect anything about the rest of the episode. So it was a funny scene, but it definitely felt like, okay, some of this was maybe for trailers or something, because it didn't really, I remember seeing those scenes in the trailers, you know, like the President Loki surrounded by all these guys. it had like nothing to do with the show or even this episode. It was just like a one-off little joke, and then they moved on. So it's fine. It was just kind of funny that like, oh, it really was not important at all, I guess. Anyways, so Sylvie shows up because she had just pruned herself, and in comes Mobius. He is still alive, as we saw in some trailer footage, I guess some mid-season trailer that basically revealed a couple, like, okay, we haven't seen this scene yet, which means Mobius has to still be alive, you know, and a couple other scenes that we'll talk about in a little bit. So he picks up Sylvie and they run away, and basically her plan is to enchant the big smoke dog creature, and because she believes that whoever is actually behind this, who created the timekeepers and the TVA and is actually trying to, you know, create just one solid timeline, this whole thing, because that's the thing to remember. Even though the timekeepers are fake, even though the TVA are just variants themselves, the one thing that is actually really happening is that there's one timeline, and any possible other timelines have been like getting clipped off, getting pruned. The branches have been getting clipped and sent to this void to be destroyed. So whoever's really behind this, whether it's Kang or the One Who Remains or whoever else, they really have been trying to create just one single timeline for some reason. I don't know if there really was a multiverse war or whatever, but you know, something's been happening here. So anyways, they basically all get together and they regroup. There's a couple of nice moments between Loki and Sylvie reuniting, and Loki and Mobius, and basically they come up with the plan of like, okay, Mobius is going to go back to the TVA using the device that Sylvie stole from Renslayer, and they hug, they say goodbye, and we don't see what happens to Mobius after this. He walks through the door and he's just back at the TVA. I don't know what his plan is, because seemingly Renslayer has a group of people from the TVA that either don't believe that they're all variants or don't care, because she still has people doing her bidding, people who've been in the room when the timekeepers were revealed to be fake, and when people start yelling like, no, we're all fake, we're all variants, like people were in the room for that, and I guess they just don't care. I guess some of them are just like loyal soldiers who don't care in the TVA. So I don't know what Mobius's plan is gonna be, because I don't think running in there and saying we're all fake is gonna do anything. Some of them just don't seem to care. Weird. And the other Lokis basically leave. They're like, all right, well, we live here, this is our home, this is what we do. And it's just Loki and Sylvie. They try to just wait for this creature to find them, and they're trying to create a distraction, and at first it's not working, but then classic old Loki, he creates a giant Asgard, a fake Asgard out of an illusion. And his whole thing was that like, yeah, I created an illusion so real that even Thanos didn't realize he was killing a fake Loki. So his whole thing is that his illusions are like very, very convincing. So he creates an Asgard, and the creature immediately tries to go destroy it, which of course, you know, when he goes to bite into it, nothing happens because it's just an illusion. And that is enough of a distraction for Loki and Sylvie to both try to enchant it and open this portal. Unfortunately, classic Loki does get destroyed, but they open the portal, and what we see here is a scene from the mid-season trailer. We see like this building on this seemingly asteroid in space, and then behind that we see the timeline. It looks like, you know, it's just like a big white light going, you know, this big horizontal line, just like they see on their actual monitors, and that seems to be the timeline itself, which is interesting to think that like, okay, it's like a physical manifestation of the timeline, but it's literally like a horizontal line made of light. I don't know if they're gonna even bother trying to explain that, you know, because they can look over and say like, well, there it is, there's the sacred timeline that we've been trying to, you know, keep stable or whatever. It's literally like a light, the horizontal line in space. I don't know how, if there's like a different dimension type thing, or I don't know how they're gonna explain that, but that seems to be what we're looking at. And yeah, that's basically the end of the episode. So yeah, Mobius is gonna have to do something in the TVA. I hope he has a plan to take out Renslayer, or maybe he hopes that he can convince her, but she does not seem to care. You know, like Renslayer's whole thing, either she knows what's really happening, or she just wants stability for the TVA, and she doesn't care that it's all fake and that it was all a lie. She cares much more about like just continuing to do her job because it's what she's always done and it's all she knows, you know. So that's kind of an interesting thing there. I don't know, my thing is like everyone else who's learned the truth, or at least most people, they immediately kind of like, oh well, screw this then. But Renslayer and those loyal troops that seemingly don't care either, they're just sticking with the program, even though they've been told directly like it's all, none of this matters, it's all fake, you know. So that's interesting. I don't know if she actually knows the truth, or if she's gonna react in some way once she finds out who's really behind all this. I'm suspecting that she does indeed already know, and it's Kang. That just seems like the most likely thing to happen. Yeah, so I don't know what they're gonna find once they go through that portal. I will say this, they had this conversation earlier about how, like, you know, at the end of all this you might have a timeline to do this or whatever, and everyone, you know, basically at the end of all this there's going to be all these different timelines because the TVA is not going to be here to clip them all out and delete them. And the thing is, like, that means that that's really just the natural state of the universe, and the timeline is for there to be a multiverse where different events happen. And by the end of this show, I think that's really just the state we'll be in, is like, yeah, the whole purpose of the show was really just to say, like, yeah, there's a multiverse, there's different timelines, random stuff can just happen, and it's kind of infinite, right? And perfectly setting it up for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man 3 probably. So yeah, pretty cool. It feel, this one, you know, there were moments in this episode that felt like they were kind of just biding their time a little bit. They wanted to take up an extra 5 minutes or so they'd have like these quieter, slower moments between characters, because we know that like the big finale is happening next week. This was a pretty good episode. I don't think it was as good as last episodes. Last episodes feel like it was like a big reveal episode. This one, I guess my thing is, like, this show seems to have big reveal episodes and then explanation episodes, you know, a lot of expository dialogue and stuff, and that's what happened in this one. So last episode was a big a big revelation, right? A big, like, oh my god, look at this. And this episode was like, okay, well, now we'll explain it all, you know. That's basically what happened here. So this last episode should be like a big final reveal of, like, okay, really though, what is happening, who is behind all this, and why. That's the other thing, is like, if it's Kang the Conqueror, why is it that he's trying to delete the multiverse? You know, that's because that's essentially what this person is doing, is they created this society to, you know, make sure there's only one timeline, you know. So why is that so? Because the thing you got to remember is that, like, that means that this person pick and chose what events are okay to happen, you know. That means that they were okay with Thanos doing what he did, and then the Avengers undoing it through time travel, and, you know, so forth, and, you know, so on and so on, right? That's basically the idea here, I guess. So I don't know. I wonder what Kang's motivations are. Does he see himself as like this godlike figure who, like, I get to decide the timeline and this and that? And how did this all start? That's my thing, is for this show to really land its ending, I feel like they're gonna have to really explain some major things. I'm sure there's going to be stuff that is left open and we just kind of have to theorize about. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of that. But the major things of, like, not just who's behind this, but why and how, you know, that's really the key things here. So I'm sure we're going to get a big reveal of who, but the why and how, those are the big ones. Anyways, so let me know what you guys think about this episode. There were a lot of Easter eggs. I saw the Thanos helicopter, which if you don't know, way back in the day, Thanos, yeah, the big Titan movie Thanos, he used to ride around in a little helicopter, like an Earth, not even like an alien helicopter. It was like an Earth helicopter, and it said Thanos on the side, like just his name. And so that was here, and we saw the Throg, which is Thor Frog. He was in a jar underground. We saw him attempting to break the glass, I think, which was actually really sad, because it's like, you know, that Thor Frog, he's probably gonna, I mean, you know, he's already been pruned by the TVA, but he's probably gonna end up dying underground somewhere. But we saw a Meownier, not that far away from him, so I'm wondering if that was like his or something, and I don't know. I don't think we're gonna see him again, but it is cool that they at least put that in there. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about this episode. Let me know your theories for the finale. Do you think it's actually gonna be Kang, or do you think it's gonna be something else completely different? It's Mephisto, right? No. Anyways, yeah, pretty cool, and I'll see you guys next time.